Joel thought he knew Naomi. 7 years married, a steady routine, a home built on shared effort, splitting bills, rotating chores, talking through the usual mess life throws at two people under the same roof. Their world was quiet, functional, predictable. But for Joel, one thing had always been sacred, non-negotiable: loyalty. Cheating wasn't a mistake to him. It was the end of the road, a clean break, something you didn't come back from, no matter how many tears were involved. That's why he never saw it coming when everything started to unravel from one casual night on the couch. They had picked a random movie, a drama with great reviews, supposedly raw and real. It followed a couple spiraling after the wife had an affair with a coworker, guilt, gaslighting, reconciliation attempts, messy relapses, and a quiet ending that left everything unresolved. As the credits rolled, Joel leaned back and said, without thinking, "I could never stay with someone who cheated on me." He said it like you'd say you didn't want pineapple on your pizza. But Naomi didn't laugh or nod. She stayed quiet, eyes still locked on the screen like it hadn't ended yet. Then she turned her head and said something that hit Joel harder than anything he'd seen in the movie. People make mistakes. Sometimes one mistake doesn't define everything. You can forgive. Her tone was cool, matter of fact. It didn't land like a random thought. It felt preloaded, like something she'd repeated to herself enough times to say out loud without choking. Joel's jaw tightened. He looked at her for a long second. "So, you think cheating's just something you can move past?" She nodded slightly. Nobody should be crucified for a moment of weakness. What matters is whether they regret it. That's when everything shifted. It wasn't just a conversation anymore. It was something heavier, weightier, like a bomb ticking between them. Joel pushed back, said that cheating destroyed the foundation of love. But Naomi kept her calm, said mature relationships meant facing imperfections. She sounded rehearsed, like she wasn't just stating an opinion, but defending something she'd already done. He didn't call her out, not yet. But that conversation lodged itself in his gut like a splinter. Over the next few days, he started watching her more closely. She flinched at anything personal, changed the subject when things got even slightly uncomfortable, snapped over nothing, like her nerves were frayed and waiting to break. She started getting home later. "Work's insane," she said. "My boss is dumping everything on me," she said. "I just need to decompress after hours," she said. He wanted to believe her. But something inside him, the part that had slept through years of routine, finally woke up and started asking questions. One night, he woke up and saw her standing in the kitchen, barely lit by the stove light, phone in hand. She didn't notice him watching. She was scrolling, typing, stopping, typing again. When she turned toward the hallway, he shut his eyes and pretended to be asleep. After that, her phone stayed face down every night. Then there was Colin. She used to mention him with that offhand tone women use when they want to seem indifferent, but can't hide the slight uptick in voice. A coworker. "Funny but harmless," she'd said. But Colin sent late-night texts, memes, inside jokes. He had his own little channel straight into her pocket. Another moment stuck with him. He'd suggested they take a short trip one weekend. She vetoed one of the locations instantly. Said it brought back bad memories. Too fast. Too firm. Like she wasn't just rejecting the plan, she was avoiding something. He started turning inward, replaying his own role. Did he miss something? Had he let her drift away without noticing? But no matter how far back he searched, the weight didn't shift. The problem wasn't something he'd done. It was something she was hiding. And it had probably been there a long time, longer than he wanted to admit. One day, he got home earlier than expected. A meeting had been canceled. He walked into the house and caught a smell he hadn't expected. Smoke. Not cigarettes. Wood. He stepped into the living room. The fireplace was still warm. Someone had put it out not long before he got there. The coals were fading, but the warmth still clung to the air. That fire hadn't died on its own. It had been snuffed out recently. Deliberately. Upstairs, Joel could hear Naomi moving. Footsteps. The dull thud of a drawer. The sharp zip of a toiletry bag. She was getting ready to go somewhere. Somewhere that apparently required perfume at 7:30 on a Thursday. He crouched by the fireplace, sifting through the black ash and half-burned wood. Something brittle crackled under his fingers. A photo charred, crumpled, but not entirely destroyed. One corner still held on. It showed the edge of a man's arm and the side of a light-colored dress. On the back, A sliver of handwriting had survived. Just the tail end of a line, and the letter L. He knew that handwriting. He'd seen it on birthday cards and sticky notes in lunchboxes. On the side of moving boxes when they bought this house. He didn't say a word, just stood there, staring into the heat, letting the silence spread. A few minutes later, Naomi came downstairs like nothing was wrong. Hairstyled, makeup set, purse slung over her shoulder. "I have to leave early," she said, breezing past him. "Work dinner. Won't be late." Joel looked at her like he was seeing a ghost in her skin. "Okay," he said simply. She smiled, casual, like she hadn't just cremated a memory in the fireplace. Then the door clicked shut, and her silence hit harder than any scream. He went upstairs, opened his wallet, and slid the charred photo scrap inside. Not out of sentiment. For evidence. The time for doubts was over. The next morning, he drove across town to a strip mall electronics store and bought 3 tiny audio recorders. Nothing fancy. Just small, silent, effective. That night, after Naomi fell asleep, he placed them. One tucked between books in the living room, one slipped inside the bathroom cabinet behind old travel-sized bottles, and the last hidden in a laundry room box she hadn't touched in months. The plan was simple. Just listen. Let the house talk back. 2 nights passed. Nothing but background noise. Video clips. Long voice messages to her friends. White noise. Then came the 3rd night. 9:47 p.m. The bathroom recorder picked up her voice, soft and warm, like silk being drawn across a blade. "Hi, Colin. I thought about you all day today." Joel was in his garage, sorting tools, when he heard it through his laptop. His hands stopped moving. His breath didn't. "Of course I deleted the messages. Don't worry." Joel went to bed early, like always. A pause. Then laughter. The kind you let out when you know no one else can hear. "Yes, Saturday's still on. Same place as usual. That room downtown, room 204, right?" A final whisper, dripping with betrayal. "My body is yours, Colin. You know that." Joel tore the earphones off like they were burning his skin. He stood up, knocked the chair back, paced. Colin. He knew that name. The funny guy from the office. The helper. The guy with the good timing, the easy jokes. Naomi always played it off. "He's harmless," she once said. "Just a character." He went straight to the computer. Typed, Colin Sterling. Socials, LinkedIn, company bio. There he was, well-groomed, polished, clean smile. In one photo from a corporate event, Naomi stood next to him, wineglass in hand, head tilted casually onto his shoulder like it was the most natural thing in the world. Caption, strong team, guaranteed laughs. Naomi's was at the top of the list. Joel clenched his fists, reopened the audio, and listened again. This time, he caught something else, something colder. Naomi's voice, saying she had to be careful. That Dana, Colin's wife, was growing suspicious. She knew. She knew the man was married and kept going anyway. She called him love. She had a regular meeting place. A damn room number. Joel spent hours that night just sitting, staring at the wall, piecing together a version of his life that no longer belonged to him. Every touch, every kiss, every shared moment, it had all been split, duplicated, contaminated by another relationship running parallel in the shadows. The next morning, before the sun rose, Joel was still awake. He couldn't rest. He couldn't stop. He started digging. Everything online. Colin's photos, captions, tags. One picture from 7 months ago, Colin standing in front of a boutique in a city nearby. In the reflection of the window behind him, Naomi's face, partially turned, sunglasses on. But unmistakable. The details she never told him. The trips she forgot to mention. It wasn't spontaneous, it was a routine. Carefully hidden, deliberately built. He opened a new tab. Typed, Dana Sterling. Found her. Brown hair, guarded expression, minimal posts. A quiet woman. He didn't hesitate. He clicked, message, and typed, "Hi. I know this is out of the blue, but I need to talk to you. It's important." She saw it. Didn't answer right away. But she would. Because her world was about to fall just as hard as his already had. Dana replied just before sunset. They agreed to meet in a quiet little cafe near a hardware store off Route 12, the kind of place no one would think to look. When Joel pulled into the lot, she was already inside, seated in a booth with her back to the window. She wasn't nervous. She didn't look angry. Just finished. She gave him a short nod when he slid into the seat across from her, as if she already knew exactly why he was there. Joel didn't waste time. He told her straight. Naomi had been having an affair with her husband. He said he had recordings. He didn't sugarcoat it. Dana exhaled slowly, reached into her bag, and pulled out a folder so thick it bent at the spine. She opened it and slid it across the table. Screenshots. Texts between Naomi and Colin. Some explicit. Some filled with childish nicknames and codes. And then there was a picture, one that turned Joel's stomach. It was Naomi's. Intimate. Folded and tucked in the trunk of Colin's car. Dana had found it during one of her quiet investigations. She said she'd known for weeks. Maybe longer. But she'd been waiting, biding time, building her case. She was filing for divorce soon, and she wanted everything to be airtight. No drama. No room for Colin to squirm out. Just court, paper, and precision. Joel sat there, stunned. There was something brutal about hearing someone else talk about the same betrayal you just lived through. Parallel hells, running side by side. He felt exposed. But not alone. Dana didn't cry. Her voice didn't shake. She spoke like someone who had bled long ago and now only wanted closure. Before she stood up, she handed him a copy of everything. Might help you do what you need to do, she said, placing a hand on his shoulder. But don't drag me into any mess. I'm tired. I just want this over. Joel nodded. Thank you, he said, though the words barely reached his own ears. She walked out. He stayed seated, staring at the evidence. His hands were shaking, but not from doubt. That was gone. What he held now was confirmation, undeniable, unshakable. He drove home in silence. Dark circles under his eyes. Stomach tight. He walked in. Naomi was on the couch with a blanket and a sitcom on low volume. Like nothing had happened. Like their life was still real. Hey babe, she said without looking up. He said nothing. Just walked into the bedroom and locked the door. He stared at the ceiling for hours. Listened to the tick of the wall clock. Watched shadows shift. He could still hear her voice in his mind. My body is yours, Colin, and it hit like a pipe to the ribs. Later, he got up, walked to the kitchen to get water. On the table, her phone buzzed. Colin. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. The name alone was a slap in the face. The next day, Joel waited. Sat in the kitchen like a man preparing for war. Naomi came home, dropped her keys, and started rambling about traffic, some new hire at work, and how her day had dragged. She laughed. Actually laughed. He stopped her mid-sentence. We need to talk. She froze. What's wrong? Sit down. He didn't yell, didn't raise his voice. But his tone cut through the air like a cold blade. I know, he said. Everything. Colin. The hotel. Room 204. The calls. The messages. I have proof. Audio. Screenshots. I even spoke to his wife. The blood drained from her face. She stammered. Tried to deny. Said it was a misunderstanding. That someone was trying to make her look bad. But then he listed dates. Places. Names. And her mouth stayed shut. She crossed her arms. Looked away. When she finally spoke, it wasn't a denial, it was an admission. She said it had started as just friendship. That she felt invisible. That Joel had been distant. That Colin made her feel seen. That it got out of hand. Joel didn't react. He just stared. She started crying. Not out of guilt, but panic. Panic that the comfort she lived in was collapsing. Then it got worse. She admitted to 2 other affairs, 2 more coworkers. It wasn't serious, she said. I didn't plan it. I just slipped. He didn't respond. She reached for his hand. He pulled away like she was radioactive. Joel stood, walked into the bedroom, and pulled a bag from the closet. He didn't speak. Didn't look at her. She followed him, crying, begging. Said she could change. Said she loved him. He zipped the bag, turned to her, and said, love doesn't hide behind a trail of lies. Then he left. He checked into a quiet roadside motel. Paid cash. No end date. He didn't sleep. He lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to trace where it all went wrong. The next morning, her name lit up his screen. A message asking for forgiveness. He didn't open it. In the days that followed, the texts kept coming. From her. From people they knew. Friends. Her sister. One even said, we always had a feeling, but never thought she'd go that far. Joel only responded when he had to. He didn't want pity. He wanted peace. and silence, and to never hear her voice say another lie again. The betrayal wasn't just physical. That would have been too easy. This was deeper. It was calculated, ongoing. Naomi didn't just cheat. She constructed an entire second life and erased Joel from it. And now, Joel had to rebuild everything from the ground up. Not just the routines or furniture or paperwork. Himself, his sense of peace, his worth, his identity. The first few days after leaving were a fog. He stayed in a cheap motel on the edge of town, gray walls and thin curtains, the kind of place that asks no questions. His phone didn't stop buzzing. Messages, missed calls, voicemails, some from her, some from people who'd heard just enough to have an opinion. But Joel didn't respond. He needed the silence. Work became his anchor. He threw himself into it with a desperation that was more about distraction than ambition. Every second was filled with something. Cleaning, sorting, reading, rereading, making up tasks just so he wouldn't sit in stillness. Because that's when it hurt the most, when there was nothing left to do but feel. But even silence couldn't block the pain. It showed up when he passed couples on the sidewalk, when he smelled her shampoo on someone else, when he heard a laugh that sounded too familiar. The memories didn't ask permission. They just came. He went back to the house once, just to grab essentials. He gave her a heads up, said he'd be quick. When he walked in, everything was too quiet. The furniture was exactly where he left it. The same scent lingered in the air. It was like the house hadn't noticed he was gone. On the kitchen table sat a letter with his name written in her handwriting. His instinct was to leave it, toss it. But something stopped him. He slid it into his coat pocket and went upstairs. His clothes were still hanging, clean and neatly pressed, as if she was pretending he'd walk back through the door any minute, like nothing had changed. He didn't look around long, just zipped the suitcase and left. Back in the motel, he sat on the bed and unfolded the letter. One page. Naomi wrote that she was requesting a transfer at work, that she was looking for a new apartment. She didn't want to stay in the same place where everything had collapsed. She said she felt shame, regret, that she never intended to destroy him like this. She said she hoped, somewhere down the line, he'd forgive her. Joel folded it again and slipped it back into his bag. Not out of care, but out of closure. He didn't reply. Didn't even think about it. Forgiveness wasn't something you hand out like a favor. Not when everything you believed in had been stomped on. The days that followed were quieter, but not easier. He changed his entire rhythm. Different routes to work. Switched his gym schedule. Stopped going to their favorite lunch spots. It wasn't about avoiding her. It was about avoiding who he used to be. People started asking. Curious coworkers. Casual friends. The ones who didn't know the full story. One guy asked, "Hey, how's Naomi?" over lunch like it was just small talk. Joel didn't flinch. We separated. The guy went quiet. Changed the subject. And that was it. No follow-up. No questions. Joel realized that's how it was going to be now. And he was fine with that. He didn't owe anyone his pain. One evening, after a long shift, he found himself parked outside the city park. Just sitting in his car, watching the streetlights flicker. He and Naomi used to come here. Early in their relationship. Back when promises felt real. She once said he made her feel safe. Called him her anchor. Now it just sounded cruel. He stayed until the cold seeped into his jacket. Then he drove back. The next week, he booked an appointment with a lawyer. Told them he wanted everything handled quickly. No arguments. No battles over who got what. Let it go, he said. All of it. I just want peace. When the papers hit Naomi's hands, her response was short. No fight. No drama. Just silence. And just like that, it was done. Legally, anyway. Emotionally, it would take a lot longer. One Sunday morning, while nursing a bitter coffee in silence, a message came in from an unknown number. It was her mother. She said she was sorry, that she still saw him as family, that she hoped he could find happiness again, even after what happened. Joel responded politely. Thank you. That was it. He wasn't angry, just tired. That same day, he left his phone on the nightstand and went walking. No plan, no destination, just needed to move. 1 hour turned into 2, then more. He walked until his legs ached, but something inside him started to shift. Not closure, not peace, but space. For the first time in weeks, he could breathe. And it was there, on a park bench, watching strangers live lives untouched by his wreckage, that it finally hit him. Love without truth isn't love. It's theater. And no matter how well it's acted, the curtain always falls. He couldn't save Naomi, but he could save himself. And that was enough.